It was fun.
I want to do that.
Oh, guys.
All right, we're all being recorded.
Yep, we're all in. We're going to go ahead and open up and let everybody in here.
Okay.
I feel like I should have a Clemson background on, Josh.
All right, good evening, everyone. If you're just now joining us, thank you for attending today. We're going to start here in a couple of minutes as we're going to let everybody kind of filter into the webinar. And so just hang tight for a few minutes and we'll start right at 7 o'clock.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. Lost it.
Good evening, everyone. If you're just now joining us, just hang tight for a few minutes. We're going to start right at 7 o'clock as people enter the webinar. All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, so we will start. Welcome to Tiger Talk, our family-to-family panel. Greetings from Clemson. My name is Josh Barnes, and I work in student affairs, and specifically with orientation and family programs here at Clemson. I want to welcome you to another round of Tiger Talk. For those of you who are joining us again, welcome back. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. It's so great to have you with us this evening. So today, just want to kind of go over an overview of the program. We'll introduce our panelists. We'll do a short presentation followed by question and answers and then closing remarks for tonight. Today, we're going to be joined by members of our Clemson Family Advisory Board who will be sharing helpful tips and advice as it relates to your students starting and transitioning to Clemson for their collegiate experience. The positive family support is important for your college students' college transition and success, and they're going to be sharing with you those resources, tips, and advice that they've learned during their time as a Clemson parent. Specifically, they're going to be talking about communication, digital resources, and family resources for you all during your time here at Clemson. Just a couple of housekeeping items here. First, this is a Zoom webinar. If you've never been on a Zoom webinar before, all the audience members, all the lines, audio lines and videos have been muted. And that's just to ensure a high quality experience for everyone. This is being recorded and will be available for future viewing in the Clemson Parent and Family Experience portal within the next 3 business days. We do ask for 3 business days. We do have to edit the video and add captioning as well. So it does take us a couple of days to get that posted on our website and into the family portal. We do hope that we will be free of technical issues today, but if we do experience them, we do ask for your grace and patience as we'll work to resolve those as quickly as we can today. There is a question and answer feature that you can ask your questions for. If you'll notice in there, there's a black toolbar box that's going across your screen. You can see a Q&A icon with a word bubble, a couple word bubbles. You can click on that icon there and you'll be able to ask your question. Please note that we will receive your questions, but you may not be able to see that come through. It comes in on our end, and then once we answer it, it'll show up and be publicly available for everybody. We do ask that questions remain relevant to the topic at hand today. And if you have other questions, we're happy to answer those for you. We're here to help in any way we can. You can email those to cufamilies@clemson.edu. We'll take the time throughout the presentation and at the end to answer any and all questions that you may have. In the event that we do run out of time, because we do, the session ends at 8 o'clock. If we do run out of time, we will follow up with you individually with answers to your questions. So be assured that we will get your questions answered over the next couple of days. All right, with that being said, it's really time to turn it over to the stars of the show here. And so I'm going to introduce our members of our Clemson Family Advisory Board. These are outstanding advocates for students and ambassadors for the university, and we're so excited that they were able to join us today. So I'm just going to kind of go down the list and let them introduce themselves to you. So up first is one of our co-chairs, Chris Dinkins.
How you doing? I am Chris Dinkins, and I'm so used to doing this with my wife because we are co-chairs. I think she's unmuted as well. So we'll allow her to introduce herself, and then we'll talk about how we came to be at Clemson.
Good evening, everyone. I am Leona Forrest Dinkins, and I serve alongside my husband, Chris Dinkins, as the board chair couple.
And we have one daughter that is a junior, rising senior, now an animal science major, and we have a daughter that graduated in the class of 2018 as an education major. So we've been at Clemson for a long time now. And my wife is an alum, so let her tell that part of her story.
No, you covered it as well. And we bring you greetings from Blythewood, South Carolina. Thanks, honey. Off to you, Kelly.
Okay, hi there. Welcome all. I'm so glad that y'all are jumping on this Zoom webinar, and hopefully you learn a lot about Clemson and have maybe a few less questions as you bring your student to start their freshman year or transfer. I'm a graduate of Clemson, as is my husband, and we just had a graduate last May. Our daughter graduated in marketing, and we have a current student. Our son is a junior in mechanical engineering. So we can know a lot about the business school and the engineering college. So enjoy and welcome again to the Clemson family.
Ingrid?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ingrid Lewis. I have a rising junior, Jordan Lewis, who is her major. She had to write it down for me. It's language and international health. She's in the honors college. She's been in honors college for, I think, 2 years now. Yes, 2 years. And we love Clemson. Oh, and we live in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Thank you, Ayo. Ingrid, Ayo.
Hi, I'm Aya Dosumu. I have a rising senior who is a psychology major with minor in sign language and biology, and a rising junior in mechanical engineering, a minor in computer science. It's been a great experience at Clemson, and we live in Greenville, South Carolina.
Thank you. Bill? Bill, are you there?
Yeah, Bill had some issues right as we were about to start, and he fell off. So he may have just actually fallen off again, and he'll probably jump in as soon as he
All
gets
right,
back.
I'm unmuted now. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try that again. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Douglas. I'm from Lamont, Illinois. Our family is from the suburb of Chicago. My daughter graduated from the grad school this spring in marketing and business administration, and my son is a junior in accounting.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Bill. And before we move into the presentation, we also have a special guest from on university staff here, Krista Cooper.
Yes, hi, happy to be here. Just like Josh, I work in the Division of Student Affairs. I'm actually the Director of Corporate and Community Engagement for the division and work directly for Dr. Miller in the Vice President's office. So I'm here to help.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody, for those great introductions. And with that, I will turn it over to the Deacons.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. And thank you so much, board members, for sharing your introductions. So who is CFAB? Well, as you can see, CFAB is an acronym that stands for Clemson Family Advisory Board. We are a group of parents and guardians who are here to serve as ambassadors for new families. Our goal is to meet the educational needs of our students as well as our family members to ensure that you are engaged in your students' experience while they are at Clemson. We also make it a point to make sure that we are a well-informed resource for family members who have students at Clemson, to make sure that we are there to share our perspectives as parents and to make sure we hear what your needs and concerns are, so we can then share those needs with the family, with the leadership at Clemson University. So if you have a desire to be a part of this group, we will be accepting applications in the fall, usually around November, and then we will get together and review applications early spring in the semester and make those selections. So if anyone has a desire, if you feel excited about what you're seeing and experiencing today, please don't hesitate to reach out to Student Affairs. Thank you, Josh. All right, so Chris and I are going to spend the next few minutes sort of sharing some highlights around some key topics that we deem to be critical to ensuring a successful transition into your students' experience at Clemson. And then we're also going to ask the other board members that are here to share their perspectives. So this is a slide that Kelly actually created, and it talks about communication. And we all know that we all have different communication styles as parents. You know, some of us are helicopter parents, some of us are bulldozer parents, some of us may be a little more hands off and teach our children to be a lot more independent when it comes to critical thinking and independent living, etc. But the key thing is, regardless of your parenting style, communication is key to your student success while they are at Clemson. So whether you are rejoicing that your student is going to be leaving you and coming over to Clemson in August, or you're going to be sad. Either way, make sure that you have a great communication plan in place. You can go ahead and advance the slide, Josh. All right, so we're going to share a few of our sort of thoughts around expectations, some of the rewards of having a communication plan in place, and some other tips and tricks. All right, so what should you expect as a new parent or guardian of a Clemson student? Well, prepare yourself for some challenges. Expect change for sure, and expect to see your relationship changing. So what does that mean, Leona? Well, the key thing for you is to make sure that while you may have expectations as parents, it may differ in terms of the reality. You may have enjoyed a very close communication style with your child when they were home, living under your roof. But when they go off to school, they're going to make new friends, they're going to have new experiences, and you may find the reality of you communicating will change. Maybe it's not going to be an everyday phone call or a once a week phone call. Your student may be more comfortable, initiating contact with you maybe once a month. So the key thing, of course, is to have the conversation and to set good expectations so no one sort of, feeling hurt or disconnected in the process. The other piece is to expect some of a roller coaster when it comes to the emotions. I know when I dropped off our first daughter, I sat on the sidewalk and I cried, and she was running off to go meet some friends that was also attending Clemson. And then of course, there were times throughout the semester where she was like, oh my God, I want to leave this place, Mom. And she was in tears. That is very normal. Your student is not going to be able to just walk down the hall and see mom or dad or grandmom or granddad, in the same, home. And so there's going to be some sadness that's very normal. There may also be some things you have to be mindful of when it comes to their health. Have a plan in place, whatever that concern is, make sure there's a plan in place. Are you going to go use Red Fern? Are you going to go someplace locally? Am I going to find you a doctor somewhere here? All those things need to be communicated. I even believe in having like a survival kit of things like, aspirin and things for nausea, Band-Aids, like an emergency kit, so that there's some independence that you are sort of helping to initiate when it comes to taking care of their health. I mentioned before the emotional roller coaster. Some of that may, be attributed to being homesick. Some may come from just the academic rigor of Clemson University. The key thing is that you are there and that you decide what makes sense for me as a parent to be able to address these. One of the things that Chris and we learned often is that our job is not to fix everything, especially when it came to academics. I will be very honest, I was that parent that would call a teacher in a heartbeat if I felt my students were being mistreated or weren't getting the care that they deserved when it came to their academic, experiences. But when they get to college, we were very intentional about if they call home and say, hey, Mom, I'm struggling in this class, my professor doesn't like me. What have you done? Have you met with your professor? Did you email them? If you've done that and you didn't get any results, did you go to the dean? And if they say no to those things, it's like, okay, well, guess what? We need you to see you making some steps forward to begin to mature when it comes to your academics before you come to us. And I only had to get involved once for my oldest daughter, and that was in her senior year. But I had to be very intentional to make sure that she had done her part. The other area, roommates, we all can probably share some stories on this panel about roommates, but the key thing is for you as a parent to have conversations with your child now about what that roommate experience may look like. I'm a big advocate of a roommate contract. When you get there, talk about, hey, let's discuss cleanliness. Let's discuss music. Let's discuss when we're going to wake up or go to bed or have friends over, friends sleeping over. Talk about those things. And so that there are not going to be too many surprises. We had some drama my daughter's first year when it came to the roommate. And so it's really important that you kind of prepare your child for challenges, especially if they're coming from where they didn't have a sibling sharing a room with them, and now they have a roommate. So really important. And I'm going to ask the board
to talk about the ASC on the
Say it again,
academic
honey?
support side. You didn't mention the Academic Success Center as a resource.
Yes, we'll come to that a little later, but yeah, I can go ahead and mention it briefly, and I know you're going to circle back to it when we get down to resources. But yes, when it comes to academics, it's really important that they use the resources on campus, whether it's a tutor, it's the Academic Success Center. We may affectionately call it ASC, but there are all kinds of resources that you will hear about throughout this session, more Tiger Talk sessions, and especially in orientation that your students should take advantage of. Thank you, Mr. Dinkins. The other area, of course, is expecting change. things like, new friends. And I believe it's still important to have the conversation about what kinds of new friends. Our son is very charismatic. He can attract everybody. So have the conversation with your student about the kinds of friends that they attract, because it's important that they make good decisions. And oftentimes our kids feel like it's important to be followers, to be accepted. And it may be good to have the conversation about what it means to be a leader or who to follow, whether that's sorority, fraternity life, or just friends in general. And of course, encourage them to have new interests and expect them to have new interests. Things they never thought about doing when they're in high school, they're going to come to Clemson and want to do it. And your role is to be open to encourage it, because oftentimes we don't know what we don't like or like, because oftentimes we haven't even tried it. So one of my favorite quotes is, we don't know what we don't know. And so it's really important for you to encourage new interests. And of course, keep in mind, this is not our time to live vicariously through our children, especially if we didn't have sort of a regular, undergraduate experience on campus. So really, and I know it's going to be hard, but it's important that we allow our children to have their own experiences. And of course, trust your gut. I tell my kids, I will never steer you wrong. When something doesn't feel right, that intuitive spirit kicks in, follow it and trust your instinct. And then lastly, of course, keep in mind, this is going to be so important, especially if you're one of those helicopter parents or bulldozer parents clearing the path for your child. There's going to be a shift, a huge paradigm shift when it comes to your relationship with your student. And you're going to find that you're going to move away from being the manager and keeping the schedule and dotting the I's and crossing the T to more of a consultant. So you are there to listen and to understand before trying to be understood. That's my favorite Stephen Covey quote there. So really important. And of course, a really important question, very much similar to what I was talking about before with our own students, is the question you should now be asking is, so what do you think you should do? How does it make you feel? So really important to get away from telling and more asking. All right, I'm gonna try to get to these next few slides. I don't want to run out of time. I can keep going. And of course, we all know these topics are super important. So start having these conversations now if you haven't already. When it comes to their independence, what that looks like, especially when they come back home for breaks. Alcohol use on campus, they will turn 21 while they're at Clemson. What does that mean? If your student feels like, hey, I want to be able to indulge while I'm underage, that's a conversation to have. What does that mean? What are the implications? Financial responsibility. I encourage, parents to talk about, the budget. Credit cards, how they're going to use their, I think it's the Tiger Stripe, the Tiger One card that they have on campus. I probably got it wrong, Josh, but have the conversation about how they're going to manage money. If you're going to give them an allowance, what are the expectations there? Class attendance, yes, so important. Back when I was there in the 80s, they did not take attendance. You are on your own. But now it is part of sort of the critical path to success. They want to see you in class. And so talk to your student about that. So get away from those stories about you can go to class, for the first day and the last day, and you can still pass. I think that has shifted, and there's a reason why. And then lastly, super important is safety. And you're going to hear this conversation over and over again throughout the next several months about the importance of safety, but start having the conversation now. Whether it's, having a GPS locator on the phone or them having each other's locations when they have friends on campus. What does that look like? How are you walking on campus? Or, are you in a group? Are you alone? My husband we tell our kids, keep your head on a swivel. The campus is safe, but it's also important that you do your part when it comes to safety. All right, next slide. Chris, you want to cover this one?
Sure. When we talk about the rewards of being on campus, it's important that you make sure your students understand what healthy boundaries really is all about for themselves, for their friends, and even for you as parents. For you, what are your healthy boundaries to make sure that your students are enjoying their experience and they're really growing as young adults? Because that's the other part of the academic side is the social growth for your students and allowing them to grow. So what are the healthy boundaries for everybody involved? What does that mean? Again, that goes back to Leona's earlier point about the conversations, having those expectations being set pretty clear up front before the students leave, like now and it's time, but as they're thinking about and all they can think about is getting down to Clemson, let's start having those conversations. Let's have the deeper conversations. Again, it's kind of tough because you want to spend that every moment with them before they leave, especially for the parents who this is their first child going off to school or going away to school. And for some folks coming from so far away, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to think about. So let's start having those conversations, from parent to student, and some of those things that you would love to say and wish you hadn't said or wish you had said. Now is the time to really have those and to teach your students how to have those deeper conversations, because there will be, I shouldn't say conflicts, but there will be times where deeper conversations are necessary peer to peer. So those students, if your students start to have those conversations with you now, then they're better prepared to have those conversations when they matter with their peers, their friends, or just other students on campus. Another part of that, the rewards of that deeper communication is stress and anxiety seem to fade away, man. The more you talk, the more people can kind of clear their head and clear their mind and clear their heart. So they're not carrying away they don't feel burdened by things they didn't say or wish they had said. So communication, the rewards of communication are extreme in this regard, especially as you're going into the situation where you like Leona said, you can't just walk down the hall and talk to your students, while they're gone or while they're at Clemson. So that feeling of normalcy, what is that going to mean? For folks who are now going to be empty nesters, they're going to be looking at that empty room like, what are we going to do with that room? Some maybe already have designs and plans and have already got furniture ordered to go into that new room, some workout gear and all those things. And there are the others that are looking like, we're not going to change it. We're just going to be sad. We're going to be sad every time we walk past the room. So what is that? What's going to be the new normal for you as parents and for your students? What is that going to mean when they're gone? So establishing that feeling of normalcy, kind of get an idea of what to expect. And we have some folks here, there are folks who obviously, this is not their first child to go. So this is maybe their last, and they're looking forward to that room being empty, but so we have the gamut. This CFAB is an amazing network of folks who can help you through this situation or through this transition. We've had an opportunity being a part of this organization to talk to parents from across the country who have experienced dropping their child off for the first time. So we've, seen the tears and seen just the welcoming feeling, or folks feeling that welcoming spirit at Clemson and being overwhelmed by it as parents. So knowing that their students are in a safe environment or with people who care about them, that's a lot. And then the joint problem solving, like Leona said, you're not the problem solver anymore. You can support, you can be that consultant, but you're not the manager. You're not going to be in that position to be able to drive every situation and say, here's what you're going to do. And we're going to go down there and we're going to tell those people X. It's good to be able to help students solve those problems, within themselves and being able to communicate with you as well. And then that increased respect, man, just being able to know that I've solved this and I've settled it. That was probably one of the best phone calls we've ever gotten from our youngest daughter, who called us after something, she had an issue, and to tell us how she resolved it. It's like you could hear the pride in her voice because she was so excited, like, hey, here's what happened. And I said, and he did, and I said. So, just that real boost in confidence and respect for themselves and others to be able to have issues or have things come up and they resolve it. So, those are all those rewards and benefits of good communication. Next slide, please, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to sort of go to these next couple of slides when it comes to family tips, and I'm going to open the floor and ask the other board members if they have any other tips that have worked for them. So here's a few on the next few slides, and I'll hit these pretty quickly, but the key thing is to find the communication medium that works for you and your student. There's not a one size fit all, but studies have shown there's a link between the types of communication and the frequency of communication to your students' overall behavioral, health, their emotional health, their academic success, or the demise of their academics. So there's a tight link there. And so, of course, there are a number of ways. We know technology is amazing in terms of how you can keep in touch. There's a few there you can see. Of course, we all know we love text messaging, but maybe it's time to now get up on some video conferencing, especially after coming through this pandemic. You can go to the next slide for me, please. And then Chris, you can share some of those tips on that slide there, please.
Again, it says after the first couple of weeks, but you just want to be mindful, checking in, and it says first couple because there will be a lot happening for your student on those first couple of weeks. A lot of things they've seen or will do. So the communication may be a little bit more frequent during those first couple of weeks, but once you get beyond that, let's look at establishing a regular schedule. Once your student gets adjusted to their schedule, their new normal on their side of the fence, and then yours, so that you have a time where you all are expecting it to be able to reach out to each other. It helps, to be able to know what's going on. There's some resources that we will show you later on, as parents, to keep you informed of what's going on. You rely so heavily on being involved and being invested while your students were in high school. You can still be informed here. It's just, you may not be as invested in their activities, but just be humorous, make light of the situation. Sometimes your students are going to call you and the situation they describe is absolutely dreadful to them and it's humorous to you. That's okay, that's life, help them get through it so that they can see from some different perspective. Get the roommate's contact information. That is absolutely vital, to know who and where they're living. And now with the way that students are selected with their roommates, they may already know, you may already have that information, but get all of that, all of the different mediums, not just a phone number, but email, social media, so that, you can reach out and be informed. And if something happens with your student's phone or if something happens to them, you have some options to be able to talk to. If you have a local Clemson club, take advantage of that, join that. It's a good network of folks. There may even be some carpooling opportunities in that Clemson club for you. If you don't have one, then hey, we challenge you to start one. Pull together. I guarantee you after the last few seasons of football, there are Clemson fans wherever you are, and they just don't even know it yet. Don't forget to check out the webcams, do those things from home. Again, all the different mediums of being able to stay in contact with your student. Sometimes a special note or handwritten note sent, kind of secretively, surreptitiously, snuck into a packed bag or something that they find a little bit later, works wonders. It helps to remind them that you're always there for them. You'll always be a resource. Clemson has a Paul Pantry that's available on campus. That can be a helpful source, and there's all types of things that students may need. They're available for them. So it's a good something for them to students to know about where it is, for you to know what resources, and also if you have some things you'd like to donate to support the Paul Pantry, then that's also an option. And lastly, remind your student that housing and roommate decisions must be made mid-fall, early. It seems like really, really early, but you don't want to miss out because housing can be a little bit of an adventure sometimes. So, make sure that's a mid-fall decision, a mid-fall conversation, and to stay on top of those housing deadlines and timelines so that they don't miss out. They can work out to hopefully get their first selections.
Thank you, Chris. So Bill, Ingrid, Kelly, or Ayo, any other thoughts around communication tips that have worked for you and your family?
Well, I would say for everybody is to look at it like a process, and you're going to be trying different things early on. And I think eventually your student they'll settle into something they're comfortable with, and it'll fall into place. And with two kids, both my kids were very different. My daughter was always the communicating one on the phone, and she settled in once a week, and my son was always the one where I could always have to pry stuff up, and he called me every day on his way back from class. So expect the unexpected and just go with the flow, and they'll settle in. You just got to be there,
Love it.
As for me, I'm the helicopter mom. So, and she's my last child to go to college. So it was, and I had a little panic attack, like for real. Like I had to come apart. But she handled it well. A lot that Leona said, my child, I was so proud, you know, that she handled everything well. One of the things that we did before she went to college, we got Life 360 so that I could, you know, keep in track where she, not knowing where she was, but like if I couldn't get her on the phone, I could look on Life 360 and say, okay, she's in her dorm, she's at the library, she's at a PAL session or whatever. So, and her too, like she would check on me, like, why are you at the mall without me, you know, or something like that. So, and I was like, girl, bye, you know, but yeah, it's communication is key. And I know when she first went, we were used to like her and I, we are like tight, very close. And so for not to talk to her every day was like, oh. So it had gotten to the point where it was better for me. It was almost like, you know, I had separation anxiety and it was like, that's my baby. But she was a young lady and I was like, no, she's my baby. I still see her in a rocking chair or whatever, but you know, that's my baby. But she, you know, I got better with not talking to her every day. You know, one thing was because of that Life 360 and I could look and see, you know, if she was in the car with friends, they were going somewhere, I'm like, okay, she's fine. You know, so I think keeping that communication open and let them, you know, spread their wings.
Yeah.
So yeah. It was hard, but it was great.
Awesome. Thank you. Ayo?
So what we found was with our initially it was nerve-wracking for her. She didn't want to be there, but then, you know, she calmed down. She was coming home often. By her second year, that reduced and she'd gotten used to it. She'd made a circle of friends. So you might see them wanting to come home or coming home or calling you often in the first year or maybe even the first semester. And once they settle in, you might not hear from them. My son, who was really quiet in high school, really didn't have a lot of friends. He went there, was very intentional, making friends, didn't hear from him. So he just, we had to find him, call him, you know, dad will call, say, did you find another dad on campus, you know, and just make jokes. So we learned very quickly that we were shifting from being a parent to an advisor. And so for you parents out there, just wanted to tell you that you shift from parenting them because they're young adults now, to just advising them. So they're going to come to you, you're going to have suggestions and you want to tell them, but let them figure it out. You know, like Leona said, when you have to step in, then you do. But until then, they have to figure this thing called life out. You know, they've been eager to grow up and this is it for them. This is how they're going to figure out things and be able to do things themselves. So just allow them, find a group of friends for you. For those of you, if this is your only child and you're going to be an empty nester, start finding some new because you might not see them that often, and they might not call that often, and they might not need you like they needed you before. So just getting used to that and enjoying your time and connecting with your partner if you're married, and getting a life because they're going to quickly forget you and just get on with theirs. So it's definitely a transition for everybody involved.
Thank you, Ayo. Thank you. All right, before we go to the next section, Kelly, did you want to share any tips that have worked for your family?
Oh, whoops. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'll tell you real quick. Understand too that their need for you and communication is going to be cyclical. When they first get there, they'll be a little bit needy but ready to go. And then if depending on what they're going through, if they're going through sorority rush, they're going to really need you. That's a bit of a challenging time period. And then there's a honeymoon period for a while. And generally about mid-September, which is when the family weekend is up at Clemson, is when the honeymoon is over, the first exams have happened. They may or may not do well on those first exams, and they're exhausted from the whole process. So understand that things are going to go like this all year long, and you know best how to handle your students. But like many of the other parents have said, I have a girl and a boy, and they both communicate very differently. Hear from my daughter all the time. My son, we would have to say, we're never giving you a dime unless we hear from you today. And then of course we'd hear. So we definitely had to bribe him. But yeah, y'all will figure it out, I'm sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Josh, are there any questions in the chat that we need to raise to the group?
I think if we can get to them, we will, but I think we might want to just be mindful of time and move to the next section, and we can circle back. Again, everyone, if we can't get to your questions, they're great questions. We're going to get to them at the end, or we'll follow up with you outside of this session.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Chris, you're going to cover the next section?
Thank you, Josh. And you definitely, we're going to move to this, the digital resources fairly quickly. Just there's some things that we want to appraise you of or make you aware of that if you're like me, you get a lot of emails from a lot of different sources on a couple of different mediums, work, personal, a couple of different personal email sites. So signing up for something else is not something you had intended on doing, but I promise you this will be worth it to sign up and be a part of this Clemson parent and family experience. Joining this, the portal, becoming a part of that, signing up, and there's some steps in here to do that. The information that you get will be worth it. We will give you a calendar, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later, but this will be a digital resource for you as well as for your student, because it helps sometimes as a parent to have to ask, hey, when is this other thing coming up? Or being able to say, hey, I know this thing is coming up. Are you going to go? Because there are some things that will be on campus that your students may not even be aware of unless they really are tuned in. So please create the account, and in simple steps, 1, 2, 3, going in, signing in, indicating your area of interest for the news, all of those types of things. And then boom, you're registered just like that. And then you move on to the other step where it's the benefits of doing that. You're asking, why do I need to sign up for this portal? What are the benefits of doing that? Next slide, please, Josh. The benefits for you as a parent, you'll get that email announcements. You will have that information sent to you. I know we're in this digital age where, things are coming to you. You can access the information in multiple ways, multiple formats, from your phone, from your laptop, however you are, whatever your digital comfort level, you'll have that information at your fingertips. You design your own experience. You set the frequency so you're not getting a lot of extra emails if you don't want that. You get it as you need, as you like. So it's coming to you, straight to you. You don't have to go and find the information or things that is going on campus. Those dates and things that you can't remember, they're right there at your fingertips. And there's some other digital resources as well that we want to show you via the newsletter and the Clemson.edu site. So those are there. Again, this is being recorded, so if you need to come back to it, so these are here, or you can, we do at conferences, take a picture of the slide. Clemson EDU is an amazing site. There's so much to see there. If you've not been there, if you've not really explored it, please take some time to, again, the parent newsletter, and then all of the different social media sites and the publications. Clemson does an amazing job of keeping folks informed, not just parents, but supporters and stakeholders, students, everyone that's attached to the university. There's some information outlets for you, whether you're incoming freshmen or you're seniors or grad students about to, look out and hit the world. So there's some resources, digital resources for you to take advantage of. And Leona's going to walk you through some other family resources that are beneficial to you as well.
Thank you, honey. Yes, so in this next slide, we're going to take a look at some of the publications, and some of these are my absolute favorite. You can go ahead and advance the slide for us, Josh. So Chris already mentioned the family calendar. I cannot stress enough how wonderful this calendar is. I keep mine in my office. You get wonderful pictures of families engaging on campus. you sort of get a month by month outline of what's happening at the university. Kelly mentioned before about exams. You don't have to ask your student about when are your exams. It's all called out on the calendar when students are going to be out for a break. Great information on the family calendar and some great tips for every month. Because as Kelly said earlier, some of the other parents said as well, you're going to notice some cycles of your child's emotions and how they are handling certain things. This calendar gives great tips to parents and families about how to handle it and what to expect as the months go on in the academic year. So great resource, can't talk about it enough. Of course, the family handbook is great. Clemson World, for those of us that are honored to say that we are Clemson alumni, we do get Clemson World. I love it. I think I've kept every single copy that I've gotten over the years. So they're stacking up, but I'd like to go back and just read them. Great, great, great resource. And if you want to borrow mine, just let me know. Decipher is a great one for creative inquiry stories. It just kind of shares what your students are working on campus. And it's really just wonderful to see the work that our kids are doing. I'm a very data-driven person, so I love to read all the work that students are doing. The Exchange Monthly is just for the College of Business. That was my college. Great information there, as well as ideas if you are from the College of Engineering, Computing, and Applied Science, and have your student and you look into the respective college that they're a part of to see what other publications their colleges may have as well. Then, of course, the Echo, that is sponsored by the Clemson Alumni Association. You can keep moving forward for me. Chris also mentioned before social media, and I think Kelly may have authored this slide, but as you can see, there are a number of resources out there, a plethora of social media resources that you can go to and find information about the university. These are all the ones I believe that are all sanctioned by the university. There are some that are unsanctioned by the university, but it's still good to, I think Facebook has one for just families as well, but these are all ones that you can go to get good information. I think I pretty much subscribe to most of all of these because I like to know what's happening on campus. And it's also good, in my opinion, to interact on some of these platforms as well. If President Clements, posts something, especially when it comes to maybe one of the teams having won a game, just something, empowering about the students, retweet it. It's your way of sending a heart emoji to the president to say, hey, I have your back, and to the university to say, hey, I love you, Clemson. And it tells the students that you care. That's just Leonaism, but I'm a big fan of just letting people know that you are reading, that you care about the time they're taking to put information out there so that you as a parent, as a guardian, as a family member, you are informed and you are getting an opportunity to be engaged, which will just speak volumes into the success of your student while they are at Clemson. All right. So are there any that we want to highlight? Kelly, Ingrid, Io, Bill, any that kind of speak to you specifically that you want to highlight to the guests on the call?
I am on a couple of parent pages, Facebook pages. They have one for each year. And there is a lot of information on those pages that I have found very helpful, navigating this thing called Last Child Going to College. So, yes. I love my parent page, and they have it for each class. So I'm a part of class of 2023. Okay. And then they have a general Facebook parent page.
Okay, love it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I just one caveat I just want to say on the Facebook parent pages, the items that are listed here are ones that are endorsed and supported and run by Clemson University. Just know that I also am on all the parents' Facebook pages as well, but it is not actually run by Clemson.
Correct.
It's very opinion oriented rather than facts and information, but there are very knowledgeable, experienced parents that are on there where you can get a lot of great information.
Yes, excellent point. Thanks so much for clarifying. And also things like if you're looking for rides for your students and you're looking for parents in the same city, the unsanctioned, as I call them, sites are good for that sort of connection. Just sort of look at it as any other sort of personal social media platform. Look at it that way versus an official communication medium from the university. So I want to clarify. All right. Go ahead, Krista.
I'm sorry, if I could just jump in there. Thank you, Kelly, for mentioning that. I do want to caution anyone on those types of pages to not give out your personal information. Just don't assume that it's a Clemson University page and give out personal information, because we will never ask you for that on a Clemson University page. So I just treat it, as Kelly said, as you would with the caution of any other social media piece. So I would caution you on those. We don't have particular Facebook pages for individual classes. We just wouldn't have the administrative staff to run those. A lot of those are third parties that are looking to gather data for you. Not to discount the data that's on there and the people that do contribute. There is a lot of wonderful information on there. Just be careful when you do provide information on those sites.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Krista. All right. So we're going to turn it over to you, Josh, to open the floor for Q&A before we close out.
All right. We do have some questions, so we'll start getting into those right now. So I'm just going to kind of start back from the top here. We've had a couple of questions about housing, prohibited items. The best place to do that, to just make sure that you're not bringing anything that's prohibited in the resident halls, is actually to check your student's housing contract. That is where everything will be listed as to what's allowable, what's not. If it's not listed as prohibited, then you can assume that it is safe to bring with you. As far as roommates are being selected, that should be a part of the housing selection sign up. I know a couple people, we will follow up with you online about specific information related to that. Let's see here. This is a really good one from Leslie, folks, and this is about kind of an out-of-state student, just an unexpected medical need or issue. How would you recommend them handling it? They did ask a question about Redfern, which they asked if Redfern was the best option. Redfern is a great option. The only unfortunate thing about Redfern, it is not open 24/7. It's just open during normal business hours. And you can find their actual hours on their website. Just go to clemson.edu, you go in that search box, just type in Redfern, and you can find their actual hours. Those are kind of updated regularly based on the semester. But please note that we do have a fire and EMS department that's specifically for our campus. We have Clemson Fire and EMS, so students can call 911 and it goes to the campus 911 dispatch, and they can dispatch fire and EMS to your residence hall or to any location on campus. They actually also serve the local community. So the chances are that even if they live off campus, our fire and EMS may also respond to that. There are a couple of local hospitals as well that they would be that they could go to within a few miles of campus for emergency situations outside of Redfern business hours. But I'll open it to the parents for their thoughts and advice and guidance on just talking to the students about that and the plans that they may need to make just in case.
Yeah, I will definitely share. So through my employer, CVS's Minute Clinic was actually recommended. So they are right there on Tiger Boulevard. Your student can actually walk or ride their bike or a moped, or if they want to drive, they can, to get there. But they do have Saturday hours. And so you can actually make an appointment online, even though you can walk in, but getting an appointment online lets you kind of know how long you have to wait before a nurse can see you, and they can prescribe medicine to you. So it's a great resource.
Yeah, my kids are both from Illinois. So if you've got your employer has Blue Cross, Blue Shield, or any of the majors, the Minute Clinics are also available. And Leona mentioned one our kids have both used, but there's others as well. And, so there's ways to get to them too. There's always someone volunteering to drive somebody or help someone get where they need to go.
Yes.
And also the telehealth. Just in case you can't get to someone, make sure, like I have with my insurance, they gave us a card to access the doctors under our insurance. So make sure your child has access to that. And like Leona said in the beginning, make sure your child is stocked with Pepto-Bismol, Benadryl. My child has a little pharmacy. like going on. Like she was the go-to. I had Sudafed, I had everything. I went through and got everything that we have at home. So to make sure that she could kind of, work it out first, and then push came to shove, we will get, others involved and do telehealth.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Ingrid.
I will say too, just a precautionary thing, not so much in an emergency situation, but for parents who have students who have regular prescriptions or contact lenses or any of those types of things, to start looking at an option in South Carolina that is connected to your insurance, so that if there is a need for some of those, you're not having to try to get home for even routine dental things, just, if something comes up, if there's, and so anything to avoid having to make a unplanned trip home for a dental visit, or I need new lenses, new contact lenses, or my glasses broke. If you can look for local options ahead of time before they leave, then it doesn't feel like such an emergency.
Excellent.
Did have
Thanks,
a couple,
everyone.
did want to follow up. We had a couple people in the questions asked, like, what is Red Fern? And that's a good
Okay.
question. Red Fern is our health center. It's called Red Fern Health Center, is where all of our health services are located. And that's medical services, insurance services, counseling and psychological services. They're all kind of housed in the Red Fern Health Center. So that is what we call it around here on campus. A couple other questions here. Let's talk about, let's have several questions about Family Weekend.
All right.
So we're excited about hosting that this week, this year. We obviously, with the pandemic, we have not been able to have our last two family weekends, and so excited about having that. It's going to be September 17th to the 19th, and we are going to be posting information around mid-July on our website and in the parent portal about registration, details, schedule of events. We do have to kind of wait till mid-July because that's when we are anticipating getting our football ticket allocation for that game, because it is family weekend and that's a game day designation for us, which is really exciting to celebrate our families. And so we want to make sure we get our football ticket allocation, and that'll be a part. You can purchase tickets as a part of the registration process while supplies last, of course. But any other folks want to weigh in on family weekend?
I think it's Georgia Tech this year, isn't it?
It is, yes.
It is. It is. Well, my husband and I actually served as the committee leaders for Family Weekend for 2 years. And I encourage every single parent that's on this call. And if you have, other parents or guardians or friends that didn't make it tonight, you make sure you tell them the Family Weekend is a great opportunity to come back, to reconnect with your student, to get to know other family members, and just to enjoy this beautiful campus and all that she has to offer. Whether you are touring botanical gardens, whether you are taking advantage of some of the activities on campus, we're going to have a number of activities for all the different age groups, whether it's a movie, it's bowling. We don't know what's going to be available yet, but there's so many opportunities to get engaged, things out at the beach you may get a chance to get involved in. So super excited to see you all out at Family Weekend. And anybody else want to add anything when it comes to Family Weekend fun?
There will be events and activities on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The main event is a family tailgate that we host in the center of campus for those who come. That's kind of the main event, and there'll be other events on Friday and other events on Sunday as well. But again, just check our website. We'll send that out through the parent portal as well once those schedule of events get finalized, and we can make those public. So it's a great time. I encourage you to go. I would encourage you, if you are interested in going, to start looking for hotel rooms. We can't necessarily promote one hotel over the other here, but you can just go to the City of Clemson's Chamber of Commerce and list of accommodations in the area. You can find those here. Many people stay as far north as Greenville, 45 minutes from here, as there's more hotel accommodations than there are locally here in Clemson. The family calendar, has been several questions about that. That's a great resource that's been mentioned here. The family calendar for this upcoming year is actually in production and will be available, and every family will get an opportunity to get a copy of that as a part of the move-in process and the in-person parent orientation in August. So you'll walk out of there with a hard copy of that calendar. We also make it digitally available on our Clemson Family Programs website. Again, go to clemson.edu, do Clemson Families. It'll pop up, and you can find that calendar in a digital format right now. You can kind of take a look at it. It's, of course, it's the current academic year right now, but you can kind of take a look at it. It'll follow a similar format. There's been a couple of questions about winter breaks. Check that calendar out. It has all the breaks provided in there, so you know how long they will be, when they start, when they end, when they need to be back, and all that good information is in there. You can also check out the academic calendar, and that also has breaks as well. But we try to incorporate the academic calendar in the Clemson Family Calendar so that you don't have to go looking all over the place for it. Let's see here. We do have about 5 minutes left, so we'll try to do some more questions here. Again, if we can't get to them, we will follow up with you offline here. We'll follow up with you afterwards here. Let's see here. Let's see here. Campus, I might see. There's been a couple questions about orientation and about health insurance and advising and course rate and the student experience. If you haven't already done so, I'd encourage you to go back. We'll send you specific information offline, but if you haven't already done so, I'd encourage you to go look at the first two Tiger Talks, which are again in the parent portal. If you log in and you go into the 2021 parent orientation community, on the left side, you can see the Tiger Talks recordings. The first Tiger Talk we did was an overview of advising, registration, and the student orientation program. The second one was about health and wellness insurance, and that's our health and wellness resources. And the panelists on that session really got into insurance, what's covered, what's not. Great resource for you on that one. We'll send you direct information, don't get me wrong, but that would be a great resource if you have not already to go check that out. But do you want to talk about like the emergency texts? There's been a couple of questions about that. Do you find that useful for you and your students?
As a parent, I did. I got information sometimes I was able to, that my daughter didn't even know was going on. There was a fire on campus at one point on the opposite side of campus where she was. So I got the text alert from the emergency services. So I reached out to her like, hey, are you okay? You good? Like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, there's a fire. The road is closed over. It's like, oh, well, I'm glad you told me that because I had to go that way. I was going to go that way for class. So, you know, it's good to get that information right directly from the sources in terms of emergency services.
Excellent.
Simple text sign up.
Yeah.
You just, dial in, text in, and then they'll hit you right back saying, are you confirming that you want to receive these alerts? So it's real easy.
We're actually
Yeah.
posting. Oh, go ahead, Kelly. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to mention for those of you that are not from this geographic area, don't panic when you hear that there is a hurricane coming, because every year we will get a number of hurricanes that are coming this way, and we'll hear about it for about 2 weeks. 9 times out of 10, they don't come anywhere near us. And Clemson will have an emergency plan available for that, and will communicate through the parent portal any information about whether there's closings due to flooding or things like that. So just want to give you a warning on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. I do want one more question, and we'll close up. Again, we'll get to your questions. If we weren't able to answer them today, we will answer those questions for you. This one's specifically for Bill, and I think it's a good one. Bill, did your child feel like they were the only one that was out of state at Clemson?
No. The thing to keep in mind is a very significant portion of Clemson students are from out of state. And, my daughter was the first student from our town to go there. But I'd say with both of them, the thing to keep in mind is they're all new there. They're all making friends. And I found with both my kids, they've got friends from South Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Illinois, Colorado, Texas. So not at all. And the other thing to keep in mind, all you parents, is you raise great kids, and your kids are going to be friends with my kids. So they're all in it together. And that was a very easy transition for my kids being from out of state. It really was.
Excellent. Thanks, Bill. All right, Leona and Chris, I'll throw it back to you for closing remarks.
We'll wrap
Awesome.
this up very quickly with some reminders for you as parents. One, encourage your students to be safe. I mean, it's safe in all regards in terms of who they're with, where they are, being mindful of their surroundings and their settings and the things that they decide to do, peer pressure safe, all of those terms, all of those things, just encourage them to be safe.
Encourage your student to practice kindness. We all know that this past year has been a challenging time for all of us. It's a time for us to just be introspective and to be aware of everyone else. So please make it a point in all of your conversations to encourage your student to be kind, be the difference they desire to see.
Encourage them to be mindful and open to new experiences, new people. Diversity is something that is, really being pushed by Clemson. So they will encourage and encounter a lot of folks who are not from where they are, don't look like them, don't sound like them, don't act like them. So just encourage them to be open. They may find some of their best friends and people that they would never speak to or hadn't spoken to or considered friends from before. So encourage that open mindset, in terms of their own growth.
Thank you. And then lastly, remember to say, I love you to your student often. And those 3 words can be displayed in different ways. It could be the numbers 143 at the end of a text. It could be a card in the mail. It could be a text message with a heart emoji. What's most important though, is that your student knows that they are loved.
Amen.
It has been a pleasure spending time with you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Just another round of applause for our CFAB panelists. Thank you all so much for taking the time to visit with our parents of our incoming students. I want to thank you all for attending today. Again, a recording of this session will be available for future reference within the next 3 business days through our family portal. Also just want to promote our upcoming Tiger Talks. We have one on June 15th that starts at 1 o'clock. That's actually not necessarily hosted by our office. It's actually hosted by financial aid and student billing, but it's covers information on how financial aid works, when bills are due, tuition, all that good stuff. So I hope you can join them at June 15th at 1 o'clock. And then the next one we're hosting is June 16th, and that's about supporting your students' academic experience. And so you'll be hearing from the Academic Success Center, you'll be hearing from Clemson Libraries, you'll be hearing from the Career Center and Undergraduate Studies, just about that academic expectations and rigor that comes along with coming with a top research institution in the country. All right, with that, as always, if you have any questions, we are here to help. You can always reach us at cufamilies@clemson.edu. For those of you who we were not able to get to your question today, our apologies, but we will get to you. We will get an answer back to you very soon. And thank you for coming, and I hope you all have a great evening. And until next time, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Thank you. You have a good night.
Bye-bye.